Well, as the US hails the strike on Larijani and Soleimani as a success, there's been a high-profile departure from the White House. Joseph Kent, director of the National Counterterrorism Center, has quit over the war with Iran. He's accused Israel of dragging Washington into the war, saying Iran did not pose an imminent threat to the US. Let's go back to John Holman in Washington, D.C. John, so what more details are emerging about Joe Kent's departure then?
Yeah, actually, one detail that has just emerged. So Joe Kent, in his resignation letter, said basically that he didn't agree with another American intervention, another American war. He said, I can't support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives. And he said that Israel was dragging the US into this war. President Trump has just reposted something that that Joe Kent posted on Twitter about 6 years ago, where he said we shouldn't sit and wait for the next attack, and I'm adding this bit, we should wipe Iran's ballistic capability out. So he tweeted that 6 years where he was advocating a preemptive strike on Iran. And I guess President Trump's using that as sort of evidence that that Joe Kent didn't always think this way. But Joe Kent definitely, it's important, not just because he was overseeing the department that looked at intelligence of terrorist activity in the US, which is particularly important in the context of what's happening right now, but also because he really was a Trump supporter and may still be a Trump supporter, a loyalist who was picked for President Trump, someone who thought that the January 6th rioters, for example, were political prisoners. And so that really speaks to part of Trump's base, which is MAGA, Make America Great Again. There has been dissent from that area of the base, from figures such as Tucker Carlson, saying this isn't what we were about and this isn't why we supported you, President Trump. We thought you were going to get us out of those wars, not put us into one. But President Trump has been responding by calling, in this case, Mr. Kent, Joe Kent, weak, and saying that he didn't know so much about security.
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it.
So the question always with these things is it going to be the start of a bigger crack emerging, particularly from within the administration? And it's been widely reported that, for example, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, isn't completely in step with what President Trump is doing in Iran. You can notice it in his statements, he's a little bit more guarded. But he came out, and when he was asked directly by a reporter, he immediately accused him of trying to drive a wedge between the vice president and the rest of his administration. Also, the boss of Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, has been reported about possibly being a little out of step as well with President Trump on Iran. But so far, everyone's been very much towing the line and not saying anything out of place from this administration. It doesn't seem like anyone else is quitting soon.
John Holman, live for us in Washington. John, thank you.